interesting. He says, there's nothing comparable to Yiras Elokim, right second column, right in the middle. Ratzaloma ki shar hadvorim Edom im Hashem Yisroch legamri kamo shu yiras shamayim. Fearing Hashem, that directly connects. You put on tefillin for whatever reason. You can put it on for cultural reasons, you can put it on for any other reason. Eat matzah, Shabbos, whatever it may be. But what is the meaning of yiras shamayim? You fear God. So that directly links to God, right? There's nothing which connects in terms of the level of observance or performance which directly links to Hashem as yiras shamayim. What is yiras shamayim? It's an acknowledgement of God. That's what yiras shamayim is. And it's not only just an acknowledgement. The person says, I believe in God. But what does that mean, you believe in God? Okay. God's there, I'm here. Yiras shamayim is much more than that. It's a direct connection that every aspect of my being, He's monitoring, willing, and observing. That's what it is. It's another level. Yira has to do with the essence of His godliness. What is the targum of Elokus? The cholahu loshen mora. Elokus means you fear Him, you revere Him. Because you have an understanding of who He is, therefore there's a fear. I just want to bring out this point. I always say fear doesn't mean fear of punishment necessarily. What is awe? But awe is fear. You'd say, I'm awestruck. But awe is fear. You're afraid. You are afraid. If something is awesome, that's awesome. It's all nonsense, the way people speak today. Right? Or there's fear. You stand before a king. King, although you know the king is not going to harm you. Factually, you're afraid. First time you're going to have an audience with a king, and you come before the king, you're fearful. What are you fearful about? No, he will not kill you. It's because of what he represents. Because of what he represents, his power and everything, that somehow affects you in a way that you feel insecure. It causes you to feel insecure. When you feel insecure, there's fear. A person feels confident, you feel secure, you're not afraid. But when you feel insecure, that causes fear. Why does that cause fear? Right? And why do you feel insecure? What gives a person a sense of value and confidence and security? Ernie, what would you say?
Familiarity.
That's the person who doesn't get it. You meet a person who's whatever. So, how you doing? You don't speak this. If you understand who he is, you don't say how you doing to this kind of person. What's the reason? Because what gives a person a sense of security and confidence is because I am who I am. Therefore, I have nothing to be afraid of because I am who I am. But what happens if you don't know who you are? Or what you are, you realize you're nothing. My life's accomplishment is nothing, so what are you? Right away, you've been demoted and diminished and devalued, so I'm nothing. Your whole sense of being is what I am. What am I? So if you feel you're nothing, then you're insecure. Because the basis for your sense of security is your being. Who am I? So if you're in the presence of a person who's endlessly greater, and anything you've done in your life has been minimized to nothing, so your sense of accomplishment that moment is what? Is reduced to nothing. As a result of that, well, who am I? I am, but you're not. And the moment you have a sense that you're not, there's fear. But it emanates from awe because you recognize the difference between this individual and yourself. That's awe. So if you stand before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and whatever you are, you're nothing, your intelligence, your strength, your ability, and everything, you're nothing. So even though we know it, but we don't feel it. So if you don't feel it, there's no fear. You understand? That's why we're not afraid. But if you stand in front of a mortal king, and this king is whoever he is, and he has the ability to give life and take life, and to conquer, and what he's accomplished, then you're afraid, even though guaranteed he will not do anything to you. The example I always give, a person who's a true intellectual, and he has intellectual accomplishments, let's say in physics, and he comes before Einstein. So whatever he has accomplished in physics is considered meaningless. And what does he feel? And his whole life, what he prided himself, his accomplishment, is whatever he's accomplished. Your accomplishment is considered nothing. So what are you? So your whole sense of being, it's not there. Once it's not there, then you know, as they said, you have butterflies in your stomach. Although he's not going to say a word, he's just going to shake your hand. More than that, he's not. But you're afraid. So Elokus means Mora. As he says, the Targum of Elokus, Yira Shamayim. The more you understand, you internalize who God is, that causes Mora, that causes fear. Not that God in any way is going to take your life in this moment. But who is he and who am I? Okay? It's very difficult. I always tell over the story about Rav Chaim Volozhiner had a son. He had a son, his name was Rabbi Yitzchok Volozhiner. And when he was 10 years old, he always heard so much about his Rebbe, his father's Rebbe, the Vilna Gaon, and so on and so forth. And he says to his father, when he's 10 years old, he says, so when are we going to see the Rebbe? That's what he said to his. The moment he said that to his father started to tremble. Started to tremble. Just the thought of the Vilna Gaon to Rav Chaim Volozhiner, he started trembling. He was trembling. Es Hashem Elokecha, Tiro l'Rabbis Talmid Chachamim. The S comes. You have to revere Hashem. You should revere the Talmid Chachamim no less than you revere God Himself. So therefore, what? So if you tremble from God, what it was? He was play acting. Whatever Rav Chaim Volozhiner was, if you read about him, it's considered nothing compared to what the Vilna Gaon was. But who appreciated that? He appreciated the difference between himself and his Rebbe. So just the thought of himself versus his Rebbe, he started to tremble. Because his whole life's accomplishment, whatever he is, on any level, is nothing, comparatively speaking. See, that's Elokus. That's what? That's fear. That causes fear.
So sometimes that will make a person sort of not want to do, sort of, because he feels nothing, he'll grow in despair and just give up. So, but how does that work with?
Let's talk about Hashem.
Yeah.
The more you're fearful of God, the more empowered you are.
Yeah.
See, if you realize who is who you're not, and you're against Him, then you're incapacitated, you can't move. You're destroyed. But if, as a result of recognizing, you become attached to Him, then He's on your side. That's the ultimate level of empowerment. Told over the story, the Maharal Diskin, Reb Leib Diskin, and he was something out of the ordinary. I told you his level of genius, and besides everything else. So, in Europe, whenever the Russians, were rabid anti-Semites, and the generals in the Russian army, for them to wipe out a community meant nothing. At a whim, they could just destroy men, women, and children, and if they were Jews, because of the anti-Semitism, it was a lot worse. So the community, Maharal Diskin, he was in Lumja. It was his father's community. It was a community in Europe called Lumja. It was in Bnei Brak. In Petah Tikva, there was a Lumja yeshiva. Lumja, because they replanted it. I'm going back in the 20s. Lumja. So they got word that the army's coming through Lumja with the general, and this general was known to be a megalomaniac, besides being an anti-Semite. So about a week before they came, the Jews, they scrubbed the streets and the windows, and they put shrubbery and flowers in honor of this general walking through the community. He's going to come with his soldiers. He's going to dismount, walk with his walk. And so everybody had to wear Shabbos best. They were all lined up in the streets from sunrise. They had no idea when he was coming. But if he should come and they're not waiting at attention, forget about it. He will destroy the community. They understood what his capability is. And people, they were trembling all day, waiting that this should be over with already. So the Maharal Diskin says to the head of the community, he says, I'll be in my base medrash. When you see him coming down the street, just call me. That's what he says. So he's not fazed by this. See, they call him, he stands, and this general walks, and he sees everybody standing at attention, trembling. And the Maharal Diskin's at ease. He's standing in a respectful posture, but he senses he's not trembling the way the rest of them are trembling. So he took this as a sign of disrespect, and he goes over, and he knows he's the chief rabbi. So he goes over to him. He says, I see all the other people, they're trembling. You're not trembling. Why aren't you trembling? That's what he asked the Maharal Diskin. So Maharal Diskin says, he says, in his family, when they're overwhelmed with fear, it has the opposite effect. They become more calm. That's what he told him. And he accepted it. And he went on. What would the Maharal Diskin? Diskin, his level of emunah and bitochen and Yerushalayim and everything else, he was a miracle worker. I mean, that's how holy he was. But you can do something for me, There's God and there's you. Okay, I'm not worried. But that's Yerushalayim. God's on my side. If God's on my side, you can be Russian general, you can have all the soldiers, it's all meaningless. But that's when you connect at that level. But how many people connects at that level? To be continued.